All right. Hello, everyone. My name is Sean Higgins. I'm the Deputy Comms Director for the Biden campaign here in Wisconsin. Thank you all for joining us today. We've got an exciting program ahead with Mayor Eric Genrich from Green Bay and Coach Mike Holmgren. Just a few housekeeping things before we get started. We will be taking questions from the press at the end, but if the press can keep themselves on mute during the program so we can hear the speakers, that would be great. After the speakers conclude, we'll take a couple questions, but until then, just please keep yourself on mute. And now I will turn it over to the Mayor of Green Bay, Eric Genrich.
Well, thanks so much, Sean, and thanks to everyone for joining us today. In any other Packers season, my fellow Titletown residents and I would be getting prepared to host our first regular season home game a week from tomorrow. Bars and restaurants would be staffing up, confirming entertainment, stocking up on food and beverages. Hotels, of course, would be booked solid. Residents in the vicinity of Lambeau would be preparing to park cars and host tailgating parties. This year, it's not happening. Unfortunately, this year, the season is going to look a lot different. For the first two games, Lambeau will have no fans, and we know that even if fans return this year, severe capacity limits will be in place. This is all being done with the health of our community in mind, of course, and regardless of the circumstances, we're excited for the season to begin and optimistic about bringing the Lombardi Trophy back home again. But a season without fans, or one with few fans, has serious economic consequences for our small businesses and workers here in Green Bay, which, as you all know, is the smallest NFL city in the country. Like so many other businesses across the state, ours in Green Bay, especially those in the hospitality industry, are struggling to keep the doors open during this pandemic. We've yet to feel the full economic effect of COVID and Donald Trump's inexcusable mishandling of the nation's policy response, but we know we won't be seeing $15 million worth of economic activity next weekend or any weekend in the near future. Let's be clear, Donald Trump's dishonest and disinterested response to this virus has caused our economy to shut down for far longer and in a much more dramatic way than what would have been necessary had he followed the advice of his own health experts and attacked the virus head on. That's why Joe's plan has always been about shutting down the virus. If we don't, we'll never get our economy moving again. And I think that approach highlights what we're missing in the White House today: a president who can acknowledge reality, speak to the challenges we face, identify a path forward, and unite us around solutions. This is the kind of leadership Joe Biden is capable of and has demonstrated. Donald Trump just isn't. Feverishly flipping through cable TV and firing off inflammatory tweets, he paints a false choice between our health and our economy, but we all know the two are inextricably linked. We can't open up the economy without shutting down the virus. Small business owners in Green Bay and all over the country have made great sacrifices to keep their employees and customers safe and buy the federal government more time. Unfortunately, President Trump has squandered these sacrifices and this time. And now, 8 months into this pandemic, the president still does not have a clear plan to get the virus under control and help our communities reopen safely, effectively, and sustainably. Joe Biden has a detailed plan to get both done. Joe's called on every American to wear a mask when they're around people outside their households, and he'll develop a robust testing and tracing operation once in office. He'll use the full force of the Defense Production Act to get personal protective equipment to all who need it, and he'll chart a clear path forward for science-based treatments and vaccines. Things a president of either party could and should have done at the outset of this pandemic. Things Donald Trump has failed to do because he's not up to the task. And Joe knows that small businesses and local communities need to be prominently situated in the response and the recovery. And that's why, as president, he'll support communities like Green Bay, our first responders and essential workers, and get every small business owner an ambitious restart package to rehire workers and cover restart expenses. Green Bay is incredibly resilient. We will get through this pandemic and recession, and we'll get through it stronger on the other side. But we need someone in the White House who will care for us and fight for us. Donald Trump isn't that guy, but Joe Biden is. In this time of crisis, Joe Biden has a plan to create millions of good-paying jobs and to give America's working families the tools, choices, and freedoms they need to build back better. Our country has hard work ahead of us. Joe Biden and Kamala Harris are ready to work with us and for us to fight this virus and win, to build an economy that works for all Americans, to achieve the country we all deserve. So with that said, I'll turn things over to our man of the hour, someone who knows a thing or two about building back better. But first, I want to let him know I'm wearing something today inspired by his first playoff victory. It's a Sterling Sharp jersey that I wore to Detroit last December. I wore it to remind the surrounding Lions fans about Sterling's winning catch in the 1994 playoff victory and as a good luck charm. And I'm happy to report it was successful on both fronts. So now I'm really pleased to introduce to you a coach who brought championship football back to Titletown after a 30-year drought, and a man who did it with the highest levels of integrity and decency, Coach Mike Holmgren.
Well, Mr. Mayor, thank you so much for that kind introduction. And I do remember that catch by Sterling Sharp very, very well. I couldn't really see it because of everyone jumping out on the field, but it really jump-started us and got us going. So thanks for reminding me of that. And thank you for the privilege of being here with you today. I'm sorry we can't be in person, but it's crazy circumstances we have. So, but still, it's a privilege. So thank you. But before I get into what we are here to talk about, I just wanted to thank the people of Green Bay on behalf of my family. Kathy and I and our four kids, 4 daughters, loved Green Bay. We have wonderful memories of our time there. While we were there, Kathy graduated with a master's degree in social work from the University of Wisconsin in Milwaukee. And 2 of my 4 daughters graduated from Ashwaubenon High School. And it was a special time for our family. Kathy did, while I was coaching football, Kathy was doing some marvelous, remarkable work in the community. And she wanted me to make sure that I gave a shout out to the people at Paul's Pantry, where she volunteered her time while we were in Green Bay. You know, I'm reminded how important the Packers are to the city by a story I'll tell you quickly about when I was there. I'd been there 2 weeks, and I had gone across the street to the market to get some lunch from the stadium. I was down, I had a little cart, and I was getting some food, and I went down the aisle, and there was a little lady like my grandma at the other end of the aisle coming at me. And I'd move my cart to the right, she'd move her cart to the right. I'd move it to the left, she moved her cart to the left. Finally, we hit carts. And I said, "Excuse me." And she goes, "Aren't you the new coach?" And I said, "Yes, I am, ma'am." "Aren't you from California?" I said, "Yes, I was born and raised in San Francisco. I'm from California." "You know, it gets cold here." And I said, "Yeah, I'm aware it gets cold, but I'm happy to be here." And he said, "I just want to tell you one thing." I said, "What is that?" "Beat those Bears. You got to beat the Bears." And she started yelling at me a little bit. And right then I realized how important this football team was to the whole community. Here is my grandma, or a woman like my grandma, saying, "This is what I must do." So that got me started on the right track. And then the rest, I just had a wonderful time coaching there and living there. There's no other city in the National Football League like Green Bay. Because of its size, there will never be another team able to be in a city the size of Green Bay. The people own the football team, and it means so much to them. And now to start the season tomorrow, and with nobody in the stands and nobody in the parking lot, and not having it be what it always has been, it has to be very, very hard for those folks. You know, the mayor talked about the financial impact, and it's incredible to think that $15 million a game comes into the city from small businesses, restaurants, you know, everything that is involved with putting on a football game in that town, hotels, that it won't be there. And so, you know, it's a struggle, and it's hard, and the smaller businesses have been hit really hard. And I just am here to say that it didn't have to be this way. It really didn't. If you think about it, it did not have to be this way. When I was preparing to talk to you today, I made some notes because in my little home, I don't have all the doodads to read off cue cards. So if I look down on occasion, please forgive me. But going back, I was a high school history teacher prior to getting into college and then professional coaching for 11 years. I taught United States history. And I have been thinking in the last couple of years, how would I be teaching my kids, my high school kids, during this time with this current administration? And it brought up a lot of things that were conflicting to me. I always talked to the students about, voting is a privilege. You have to understand that. Not every country in the world has this. So you have to vote. One, you have to analyze too. Don't necessarily do what your parents do. Think about what each candidate is saying. Think about what you feel about each candidate. Think about what he's talking about as far as a plan, and then make your decision. But most importantly, vote. I've never done this before. Talked to anybody prior to a campaign. I've always voted. And I always did what I asked my students to do. I would listen to what each candidate would have to say, and then in my best judgment, make my pick. This election is different. It is really different than any other election during my lifetime. In the last 3.5 years, I have seen and listened to in press conferences and on the radio and on television, all sorts of mistruths, all sorts of things that are American people. As you go down the list, starting with people separated at the border, or fanning the flames, I think, of violence in the streets in our cities. And now the pandemic, of course, has taken over all our lives. It didn't have to be this bad. It really didn't. And now we find out in the last couple of months, he knew all along. The president knew how bad it was, and he kept it from the American people. Not only did he keep it from us, but then he didn't take action. He knew when he did not take action, talking about equipment, talking about helping healthcare workers, talking about masks, talking about funding for different things. That's what a leader is supposed to do in a time of crisis, and it has not happened. This is the most important election of my lifetime, and I dare say it's yours. I'm also thinking about the future of my grandkids and my own children. Had the administration acted in a timely, responsible way, then we may have had people in the football stadium. We may have saved a lot of businesses, and I know we would have saved a lot of lives. Those are serious issues that we could have done better. I'm here today to encourage you to vote for Joe Biden and Kamala Harris. Why? He's a leader who cares about people. He has a plan for the working people in this country and the country in general. And most importantly, when he speaks truth. And I believe him. We could have done so much better with the president, with President Joe Biden, and our ability to recover. That's what has to happen. What do we have to do? We have to vote. You have to get out and vote. Either mail it in, everyone, talk to your friends, talk to your family. We have to get this done. This is the most important election of our lifetime. Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. Sean, back to you.
All right, thank you, Coach, and thank you, Mayor. Right now, we'll take a couple questions from press. So if you go down to the participants area and click on it, you should be able to see a blue hand. And if you want to raise your hand and ask to be unmuted, we'll call on people accordingly. All right, does anybody have any questions? All right, I see Jessie with the Capital Times. We'll call on her.
Hey guys, thank you for doing this today and for taking some questions. In terms of response to this press conference, I tweeted about it the other day, and shockingly, there were a zillion responses saying, this is a bunch of baloney. But one of the responses that I guess was most common was shifting the blame over to Governor Evers and saying, you know, he's the one who made this decision. So I'm wondering if either or both of you could kind of speak to the role of states here versus the role of the president in responding to this pandemic.
Yeah, I think it's important to point out the fact that President Trump has been pretty openly pitting governors against one another, forcing states to compete for PPE and other support, financial and with equipment and other resources. If we had had a well-coordinated, honest response to this pandemic at the federal level, a president in the White House who is sincerely interested in working with governors of both parties to respond to this pandemic, things would have played out much differently. So, and we all have a responsibility to respond appropriately to COVID-19. That goes for me, it goes for Governor Evers, but it goes for President Trump, most importantly. And I just know that based on Vice President Biden's track record, that he would have performed much better than President Trump has, and he will on his first day in office.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Jesse. And we'll take a couple more questions if folks have them. So feel free to raise the little blue hand if you're a member of the press, and we will call on you. This could be a good sign that the mayor and coach were just very thorough in their remarks. So we'll give a couple more seconds for folks to raise their hand. But if there are no more questions, I see another one from Jesse.
If no one else has any, I wonder if I could direct one to you, Coach Holmgren. You've, to my knowledge, not been particularly outspoken about politics before this. So I was wondering if you could speak a little bit more to what really kind of made the difference in this election and prompted you to want to speak publicly and particularly, back to Green Bay.
Thank you. That was a very good question, and I've been asked that by a lot of people because I haven't been, like I said, I voted in every election, but I have not done anything quite like this before. I meant what I said. I think this is the most important election of my lifetime for not only me, but my kids and my grandkids because of what's gone on in the last 3.5 years. It just the untruths, the misleading, and the dangerous things that have happened. And I thought, Kathy and I were talking about it one night, what can we do? What can we do to maybe help? And I know the state of Wisconsin that I love was very, very close in the last election. I said, you know what? Maybe I can get a couple guys to think my way on this. And so we reached out to the committee, and they got back to us, and that's why I'm here. But I thought, if I'm ever going to do this, this is the time to do it because it's that important.
Thank you, Jesse, and thank you, Coach. We'll take one more question if anybody has it. Feel free to raise the blue hand, and we will unmute you. All right, well, seeing none, if I see one, I'll call on you, but seeing none, thank you so much, Coach, and thank you, Mayor, for joining us today. And if anybody else from the press needs anything from me, just feel free to shoot me an email. It's Sean, SEAN.Higgins, HIGGINS @2020victory.com, and I'm happy to help you out. And otherwise, thanks for joining and covering the press conference today.
Thank you. Thanks, Coach, to you and Kathy and the rest of the family for everything.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate it very much. And it was an honor. Thank you.
All right. Take care. Be well.